Awesome. Hello, and welcome to a conversation about how your thinking actually frames your world. And so, my name is Dr. Sylvia Wilson. I'm the co-founder and CEO of MKE Grind, that's located in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, within the United States. And I'm here with Linda Vanderhorst, and I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, Linda van der Horst, which is a Dutch name, but I'm located in Northern Ireland, which is the United Kingdom. And my background is as a started riding instructor, helping riders with body awareness and also their mindset and their balance and their breathing. And recently, I used those skills to become an online coach for people, so you don't need a horse. But examples might come in where a horse is there as well. So, and I'm a coach.
Awesome. And that's where Linda and I basically have kind of come together and cross paths, is that we're both coaches. And so with MK Grind, we also do individual coaching, but we also do some online courses. Right now, we have a Human Development 101 Managing the Mind course available. And we also do some organizational coaching for organizations who are working on their culture and really want to do a deeper dive inward and really help develop their people in order to better their culture. Linda and I were talking a couple of weeks ago, and we were having this conversation again about how thinking really just kind of frames your understanding of the world around you. And it was just a really good conversation. We decided to come together and share this conversation with others. And so if I may, just talk a little bit about how I've seen that in my own work, and even with my own self and my own experience. So for me, I think one of the biggest examples of how thinking actually kind of frames your worldview and your understanding of the world really hits for me because I grew up in a kind of chaotic home, and there was definitely some dysfunction there. However, I realized, and not even until later, how much that had really shaped my own thinking, and shaped my own understanding of who I am, what was available to me and accessible to me in life, and kind of my place in the world. And so I've always kind of had this question about, when people show up a certain way, why they show up that way, like what's behind the behavior. And that has really fueled the work that we've been doing over the last 20 years in the community within the Milwaukee area. And one of the things that we often come across is seeing people show up in a certain way, maybe in a way that may not be very aligned with wellness, and in a way that may actually cause some friction with the people around them. And being able to talk to folks and say, where did these characteristics come from? We see this, really strong emotion showing up. We see this kind of perspective that's being displayed in what you're saying and how you're presenting yourself. And a lot of times what we've heard is, oh, this is just who I am. This is just who I am. And I think when it comes to people who are, especially those who have experienced trauma, sometimes we're just really unaware of um, how our thoughts are shaping the way we understand the world around us. I also teach in higher education, and one of the things that we've just recently covered in one of my courses is basics of the brain. And really, the brain is really set up in a way to help protect us, right? It takes our previous experiences and it kind of develops this framework or this lens. And then when we experience something new, our brain is trying to figure out um, how we can kind of frame and fit that into our already created frames of meaning. And so it'll use our previous experience to kind of project meaning onto what we're experiencing right now. And sometimes, depending on what you've experienced, that's not always um, it's not always projecting something that's helpful for you, right? Sometimes it's things that bring up fear or things that bring up anxiety, things that cause worry or maybe cause us to feel a number of things like we don't belong, or maybe that there's imposter syndrome, all kinds of things. And so a lot of times we're not really aware of how those experiences are projected onto current realities and then how we are responding in that way. I'd love to hear how you see that happening in your work too, Linda.
Thank you. Just because you touched on how the brain works, and then my mind went in all different directions. So I have to reel myself back in.
Okay.
Um, because what I've noticed when teaching people when we read horses don't hear necessarily the language, but they see your body language.
Mm,
So you can sort of say, "Oh, I'm fine. I'm doing fine. I got this." And a lot of people are fooled by that if it's not the truth. But if you say that to a horse in a way, "We're going to do this because it's fine," and the horse sort of feels like, well, you're not quite sure of yourself, and your heart might be fluttering a bit, he's not going to follow you.
mm,
So working with horses is such a brilliant mirror that they reflect back where
mm,
you really are, and not the habits you incorporated that you always go for it, you got it, that's your standard way of operating.
yeah.
And then you come into this arena with this horse and you say, "Okay, we're going to do this." And it's a bit windy and a bit scary, and you just push yourself. And the horse thinks, well, it's windy. She's pushing herself. I'm not so sure anymore, because he feels where you really are.
Mm,
That is really, and then you can address someone from, hey, he's not following. So how do you really feel? And that can really start to open up a conversation, and it helps someone to really ground and be in the here and now, because that's it. Our mind creates a world, and it takes us out of the here and now.
mm,
Take a breath. Okay, this is maybe not quite a safe situation that I'm familiar with. Maybe I should just take a moment, have a look around, and then go ahead. And that's
yeah.
what horses in a herd do. They stop, they look around, and they tune into each other. So if you start to
Mm,
oh, oh, now you're in tune with yourself, and you're sort of like you're okay now to follow, because you're in the here and now. So that's how, when you have a behavior that doesn't quite fit you anymore, but it's taking you this far, maybe it's
mm,
time to change it. In the past, it might have helped you, it might have supported you, it might have kept you safe. But time goes on, you've changed, the world has changed. So it's sometimes time to look at it. And do you want to keep on doing things like that? Or do you want to think, because that takes an effort. It's not yourself. It takes an
mm.
effort if you follow your nature. So that's one of the situations that came to mind.
Yeah. I think too, I want to just kind of push a little bit in one of the things that I think you just said. And it's really this idea that the horse can feel when you're not present, right? Like if you're not present and calm right in that space, then the horse can feel that. And that actually causes the horse to become uneasy. Did I hear you right in saying that?
Yeah, and not necessarily that you need to be calm, but you need to be congruent
Mm,
how you project in how you really are. You can be angry. If you're really angry, you can be angry next to a horse. If it's valid, and if it's
hmm
true,
hmm
fine. You'll see, okay, angry, keep my distance. But so being congruent and in the moment, that is sort of the recipe to come whatever comes your way, to deal with it.
Yeah. And so I think too, what I heard you say is that when that isn't happening, then the horse is not going to follow. Did I hear you say that correctly?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's just an awesome concept to think about because I think sometimes, um, and in some of the conversations we've had before, we talk about the difference between kind of like the desires of your heart and the things that are going on in your head. And so you could, in your example, get on a horse, and the desire of your heart may be that I want to take this ride. I want to, be here in this place with this horse and enjoy this experience. But if it's not congruent, right, and your head is going crazy, then the horse automatically can sense that. And so then it's not going to follow. And I think we see that oftentimes, right? So I think the way that I see that in the work that we do is when people have goals, right? They have these goals and these aspirations and desires of their heart that they want to accomplish, but they're really just having a hard time kind of getting things moving. And oftentimes, even though that's the desire of their heart and that's true and that's real, like it's their thinking about either the process or whether or not they think they can really do it or any of those things. And so when they're in that kind of state of mind, then things tend not to move forward in the way that they want them to move forward, which is to me sounding exactly like how things work with the horses as well. Yeah, that's awesome.
Also, like my own situation, this online coaching, so I need to be out on there. So my thinking was going, oh, I need to market and I need to do ads or videos or courses. But that I got stressed only by the thought of it.
Hmm.
I've only ever done one webinar. I've never done a podcast like this. So that was not on my mind. But my desire is to connect. So I came across on your beautiful new website and it said something like partners. And my desire made me notice that. Okay, let's just, because I know you from the course, that should just connect with you and see where it leads me. But if I had followed my mind, who had worked out how I should do it, I would have never noticed this. This would have been on my radar to do. So it can, when you try to work it out in your mind, it can be so limiting. When you drop in, listen to your heart, and is you are just open to whatever comes your way, hey, you pick up things like this. Oh, and it feels good. Oh, I feel energy when I connect with this. Instead of if I think I need to have an online course or something, oh my god, the thought of it alone sort of drains me of energy. So your thoughts also create a feeling in yourself, and that feeling can help you tune in. Is this really your desire?
Yeah.
Or is your mind here taking you on a route, a safe route based on past experiences?
Yeah.
Let's do it like that. Oh, really? And the feeling that tells you, well, that's maybe not quite your way. So your thoughts can create your world if you stay tuned and they
Mhm.
stay with your real desire instead of doing what's supposed to be done or always be done, should be
Mhm.
done.
Yeah. All those things, right? The shoulds, the always, right? All and I think too, like I'm not sure that people realize, I think, even over the last maybe year and a half, I think I've come to the realization that all of those shoulds and it's always been kind of things are really things that, like you said, take us out of the present. It takes us out of the current moment. And I've often, I've told other people, but I believe this myself, like the present is the gift, right? Pun intended. Like the present is the gift. If we can keep our mind present, then it leaves our this is where our power is, right? Because the past is, this has always been done. This is maybe what it should be. These are the expectations that we built from the past, and so that is still thinking in the past. And I think you and I have both learned, right? It's like when our mind wanders to the past or our mind wanders to the future, that's where suffering is, right? But if we can keep our minds present, that is where the gift is. That is where our power lies. And that's where if we can just be still, that we get clarity that we need as to how we can actually move forward in the way that brings us closer and helps guide us in the desires of our heart, which is awesome. Um, there's one other example that you talked about because last time we had a discussion about this, you talked not only about so I talked about the mind, right? And then you brought in the emotions, which is really important because I think this is all in alignment. But then you just mentioned something last time that I think would be good to share as well, which is how what's going on in our mind and how what's going on in our emotions actually affects our behavior, our actions, right? And the way that you shared that with me last time was you talked about people kind of getting on the horses. And even if they're not fully aware of the fact that maybe they're not present, maybe they're not in alignment at that moment, their bodies literally translate that to the horse. And I think last time you talked about like the tensing up of the muscles, right? There's some anxiety, there's some fear, there's, whatever it is in that moment. And so there's this tensing up that even they themselves don't realize, but the horse does. And so you gave this example about, I don't know if you remember this, walking along a railroad track, and then the train is coming, but you're in a safe space, and how you react actually translates to the horse. Can you give that example again? I think that's really cool to share.
Yeah, that's an example I had with my own horse.
Mm,
Like my own horse was scared of big things moving fast. And we had this bridle path sort of alongside a railway track.
mm,
It was not busy, but every now and then a train would come past. So if the train came, he sort of started sort of like getting a bit anxious. Now, if I wasn't aware how to solve that, I would become anxious because I knew he was getting anxious. And when I get anxious, I tense up. And I was looking at the train because that was what he. So I focused on what he was already anxious about. Then
mm,
I would tense up myself. My breathing would come up. And then you'll both end up in panic. But if you realize how the connection, how they can tune into you, or how they are always tuned into you. So what I would do is I knew the railway track was there, but I also knew that the bridle path running alongside it, a safe distance, that was a safe place. And for
mhm,
a bird animal, if something is scary, it's a flight. A horse is a flight animal. He needs to be able to move somewhere. So if I focus on the bridle path, there was a way to go. And I focused on my breathing, really taking deep breath. And I know there's a train coming. I don't need to look at it to know that
mm,
me it's coming. So I can forget about the train, focus on the bridle path, take a deep breath, and give him direction so he can pick up that I'm relaxed, my breathing is low. He can pick up I have a plan, and either that helps him that he can keep breathing and follow, or he might still panic, but then he would go off on the bridle path instead of into the woods against a tree or whatever. So being aware how I can influence with my thought, my body, my breathing, and in doing so, creating direction, safety, and yeah, support for him. So he would know, okay, we're she's got it. Either it helps him and he can be sort of contained, or it might not help enough, but then still, being an animal that wants to run, I give him an out and I won't block him and say, no, stay here. But there, that will be building up even more. So giving him the space, so if he really needs to explode, he can go there. So the connection with what you think
mm.
influences your body tensions, your emotions, and you can change your own breathing. If you think about it, bring it down, and it shows. It
Yeah,
shows so much. But
absolutely.
people have a lot of tension just in general that are not allowed of. So I would do body work like just lifting an arm, and relaxing it slowly.
Mm.
And then they would go, oh, oh, is that a relaxed shoulder? Because they're all aware that shoulders are so tight until you
Yeah.
help to relax and think, oh, this is it. Then your body relaxes, your mind relaxes.
Mm.
And you can have these creative ideas instead of your tense and your mindset is going. So it works both ways. If you move
Yeah.
through the body, then you relax and then you can be open for opportunities that pass by and be ready for it.
Yeah. Awesome. And I think too, what I hear in that is, in this example of being on this pathway that is safe, right? But there's this train that's coming, and the horse is questioning, right? Like, I'm not sure if this is or not, but he's responding to your reaction. And I think sometimes we even do that ourselves, right? There's what looks or appears to be a possible danger ahead, or what looks or appears to be something that we should be alert about, or maybe even frightened by. But if we're so focused on that and we're not focused on, like you said, the fact that we are on an okay path, that can totally throw off everything, right? It can throw off um, how you're moving forward, or if you're able to move forward because of what you're focusing on. I think that's huge.
Yeah, and I think always a first step is to become aware of yourself.
Hmm.
There's an uncertain situation coming up. Are you totally focused on it and freaking out? As soon as you recognize that, you've got a moment of choice.
Hmm.
Just pause for a moment and think, can I do something differently? Can I
Absolutely.
approach it in a different way or get help? Or don't stay staring at what you don't know, what might be scary, and make it bigger and bigger because it usually gets bigger in your mind.
Absolutely. And it gives power to, again, like they said, what you focus on. If um, I heard there's a businessman who does a lot of coaching that I was listening to once, and he talked about how we spend a lot of time and we waste a lot of energy focusing on the result that we don't want. And when we spend all that time and energy focused on the result that we don't want, we're giving that time and we're giving that the energy that could be used for us again to just be present and kind of get the inner guidance that we need so that we can actually move towards the things that we do want and that we do desire. So, the focus is huge. And I love that you talk about breathing as well, because that is been a lifesaver for me personally in a lot of different situations where you feel your mind just kind of going and racing, and it's all over the place, right? It's thinking of all the trains, the possible trains in front of you. But just the ability to stop and take some deep cleansing breaths and slow my system down is so helpful in helping to get back present so that we can move forward, right? We can actually see a little bit clearly through all of the fuzz that your brain is conjuring up at the moment. So yeah, that is awesome. We only have about 4 minutes left, it looks like. So with this, go ahead. What I want to just hear whatever it is you want to wrap up with.
Well, because you said try to figure out what you want instead of what you not want. And then I always
Yes.
need to think about if you want the dog not to sit on the couch, but on its own little bed, don't keep thinking don't sit on the couch because they don't get. They'll stay on the couch. So
Yeah,
if you want to go somewhere, just think of where you want to go or how you want to
absolutely.
do it. Because the negative usually doesn't work.
Absolutely.
So just
No, no, that's awesome. It's the focusing on, again, like you said, the thing that you want, not the thing that you don't want. And that's truly powerful, right? I thought about even too really quickly, like growing up and seeing the example of the parents. And unfortunately, sometimes we look at the people that went before us and we look at all the failures and the things that we didn't think that they did good enough, right? And then we're saying, well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do this. I don't want to. And I remember someone saying to me, well, you're talking about how you want to parent. Why are you talking about all the don'ts? Don't talk about the don'ts. Talk about the kind of parent that you do want to be. Talk about what you do want to, provide for your family, and then we can go from there. And I just thought that was really powerful and really profound. That even when we think we're doing a good thing by saying what we don't want, we're still giving energy to the negative instead of focusing on the positive. And so that's awesome. I love that. We're here, and I think we have to wrap up here. But we will definitely add information about both MK Grind, again, which is in Wisconsin in the US. And
For my coaching by me, Linda Horst, and I'm based in Northern Ireland, but I do it online, so it doesn't really matter where you are. You do it. Just contact me if you have any questions about what we just talked about or interested in how it works. We are both available.
awesome. Thank you, Linda, for joining me for the conversation today. I love this. We'll have to do it again. And- yeah, and then we'll add our information at the end. And if there's anything that you would like to reach out to us about, please feel free to do so. Thanks for watching. Bye.